It's always a pleasure representing USHA in the Hall of Fame Committee to come together tonight in particular to celebrate a number of things, and one of them which we're about to celebrate. We've got some special people to honor who've done some very special things for this organization. We have two awards, one being the Kemmler Distinguished Service Award, and the other being a Hall of Fame player or a contributor award. And last year, we only gave out one of the awards. We did not have a Hall of Famer in '92, but this year we do. And we're going to start with the Kemmler Award, and let me just explain briefly what the Kemmler Award is all about. In essence, it's a regional award. It's an award to someone who has given significantly in his area, and in many ways it's impacted us all. Being all one family in this game, all the people in all the areas who go unrecognized now have an opportunity to be recognized through this avenue. We initiated it several years ago. At this point in time, there are only 2 members of our fraternity that have been inducted into the Kemmler, or have received rather, the Kemmler Award. And this year, we're going to add our 3rd. And I don't want to steal any of Jack Gordon's thunder, because Jack is going to make the presentation for the individual who could not be here tonight. But I found it interesting today as I watched the semifinals in the pro singles, and yesterday as I watched the quarterfinals, that out of the top 8 players in the pro singles, 3 of them came from the same community. 3 of the players, prodigies if you will, 3 of the players recipients of the time and effort of the man that we will honor tonight. Those 3 happen to be Toddy Silvera, Vince Munoz, and Randy Morones. And they don't come much better than that. So without any further ado, Jack, if you'll come up here. I know Jack will walk a little bit slower than me, so he's going to make me look good here. Jack, if you'll come on up and make the presentation. Take it back, Jack.
Can you hear me? They asked me to be brief, and this isn't loaded with speech. In fact, I'm not going to make a speech. What I'm going to do is read a letter that Tony wrote to me, and it isn't a long letter. And when I'm through with the letter, I'd like to read about 6 or 7 one-sentence notes that have been written by some of the boys that he has taught and that he's taken care of. I think you'll find it very moving. Here it is. To whom it may concern, a while back, someone asked me if I would write a resume, and incidentally, I'm going to read it exactly the way he wrote it. If I would write a resume of what I have accomplished with these boys on our handball game. And I told these people that there was not much I could say, except that sports has always been in my blood. Therefore, all my life I have been involved with different sports. I discovered handball late in my life, about 15 years ago, and I knew that handball was a sport for me. About 11 years ago, I was playing at Rosewood Park in Commerce, the city of Commerce, when an unfamiliar man arrived. I had never seen him before, but his game was so impressive that I was forever impressed. His name was Steve Wallace. I talked to him for a while, and at that time I decided that I was going to teach boys, and someday maybe they would be as good as him. I picked up a few boys and went to work with the ones that really wanted to play. I picked them up almost every day from their homes and took them back. I created some interest in them, and in 1979, for the first time, and he says, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't correct me, I took some boys to the Nationals. Before you know it, I had about 30 boys, and approximately in 1981, I took 22 boys to Tucson. Incidentally, at that time, this was at his own expense. I believe that my success in keeping these boys interested in this sport is by giving yourself to them, by being consistent day after day, year after year, picking them up from their homes and taking them back. Also, you really have to enjoy yourself very much, otherwise it would be very hard. It would be like going uphill all the time, and this is not the case with me. For so many years I have done this that people ask me, when is this going to be over? My answer is never, and they say, it has to stop sometime, Tony, and I say, not Handball. Something else that has been a lot of help is that the City of Commerce adopted this program. They have been so incredibly good that they have never given any opposition at all, and they're always willing to help financially as well as many other ways. And all over the nation where handball is, people try to help me with their advice and by keeping up with us. The USHA and many other groups have treated us so beautiful that you feel that you don't deserve so much. Everybody knows how kids are, and these boys are no different. Even then, wherever we go, people have been terrific with us. I feel that if I have given any of my time to handball, in return I have received a lot more in different ways. There is not too much to say about the techniques that I use to teach these boys. At the beginning I teach them basics, and they grow, they learn, and develop their own styles. All I do is talk to them all the time. And when they are on a competition, everybody knows that I'm there behind them with everything that I can give them. I talk to them about concentration. In other words, I work on their minds more than anything else about what handball can do for them on the financial and mental aspect. I talk about what handball has done for me and how grateful I am because it has given me so much in so many different ways that it's hard to explain. The truth is that I am inspired by the people that I meet all over the nation on handball tournaments. I hope that not too far from now, we can branch out a lot more parts of the nation with groups of boys and girls to play the perfect game. So to you, the people that has inspired me and have been so good to us all over the nation, I thank you for making this possible for me as well as these boys with your kindness and understanding. And then he added a little. I accept this award. In accepting this award, I would like to thank, well, he thanks me. I would like to thank Jack Gordon for the most support that he has given me over the years and for nominating me for this award. And he says, thank you, Jack. When I started this program about 17 years ago, I never imagined that I would get this satisfaction that I was going to get through the years. Beginning with my first champion, Richard Valenzuela, who happens not to be here. He hasn't been playing. I think he's been injured. At 16 in Cincinnati against Chris Roberts, and after that, many other junior championships. My first national champion in the three-wall national at 17 years old, Vince Munoz, playing on the doubles with Richard Valenzuela, and then again, Vince Munoz at 19, becoming the three-wall national champion. Then another big satisfaction, Octavio or Tati Silvera in Michigan at 20 years old, becoming the four-wall national champion. On the same tournament, my two other juniors, David Silvera and Vince Espinoza, became national champions on the 15 and under 17. I would like to thank a special guy for his financial support to the boys on my program and for doing this, the big favor of driving all these boys. Incidentally, this is for David I hope I pronounce it right, Esparza, took all these boys and drove them at his own expense and taking his own time, driving them, all these boys, to the national championships. Thank you all. Thank the USHA for giving me this Kendall Award. and he signed it Tony Fuentes. And then quickly, I would like to read what some of the boys wrote. And they only wrote one sentence, so it won't take long. We, the Alvarado family, and that's the naughty Alvarado family, have always shown a deep admiration for a man who has given his time and attention to a group of young men, only to see these young men succeed in life. Sincerely, the Alvarado family. Tony has been like a father to all players, someone to talk to, and best of all, he has always been there thinking of us. Vincent Munoz. Just want to show you how these boys all love this man, and I do too. Tony is a great guy to be around with, even though he tells you historic stories 2 and 3 times over and over again. Eddie Chapa. Can't see this one too well, but I want to read this. Tony has done so much for all us kids that there are times when you stop to think, where would we be without handball and without Tony? Vince Espinoza. Tony cares about what happens to the future of all our kids. This is Wallace. I have 2 more. Tony Fuente introduced me to the game of handball. I'm sure if it wasn't for him, I would not be here today. I'm glad to have met a person like Tony Fuente because there are not too many people like him. He is my coach and very close friend. I know I can always depend on him. Tati Silvera. For Tony, I would like to thank you for all the support and help throughout the years. And keep it up, helping the young kids too. And this is, I'm sorry, I can't read the name. My friend Randy Moronis, my God, I should recognize it. Tony, thank you for making my last 12 years beautiful and special. It's probably because you introduced me to the game of handball and helping all the youth. This is Manuel Resendez Jr. That's it. Now, the only thing I can say is that in my 60-some-odd years of being associated with handball, I have made thousands of friends, and I'm very, very proud to count among them Tony Fuentes.
Accepting the award for Tony Fuentes, Patti Silvera, and David Esparza. Tony can't be here tonight because of a family commitment.
I knew that was right.
If I can find what I want to say, I'll be happy to start. I won't be as long as the Minneapolis presentation.
Freddie grew up with 94 lights, not 96. So.
Fred Lewis deserves this award not only for his handball playing, considering he's one of the greatest that ever lived.
Louder!
Fred Lewis deserves this award not only for his playing ability as a national champion, one of the greatest that ever lived, but for all the contributions he's done over the years. He's been a member of the board of directors since 1982 and has been a treasurer since that time too, which I don't think everyone knows is an unpaid position, and he donates much, much time. As far as his record, he's 6-time national 4-ball champ and 3-time national 3-ball, plus many, many pro titles, and probably as many second places as Howie Eisenberg. Am I going to get something back on that one? Not only that, Fred has spent much time in clinics and teaching anyone who can how to play the game, which I think is enjoyable. He comes from a great tradition of handball at Castle Hill, and 2 Hall of Famers are here. Okay, I gotta listen to my partner back here. But 2 of them are here. 2 of them were mentioned. I'd like to mention that 2 people that were very instrumental in Fred's career were 2 Bobs. His father, Bob, was a very fine one-more player, and Bob Davidson donated much time coaching Fred at Castle Hill. I have known Fred very briefly, 40 years, and we have been friends for all that time. I can't think of anyone that deserves this honor more. Thank you.
We were asked to say a few words. We're probably doing this a little bit backwards because Pete's going to talk about all of Fred's accomplishments and a lot of what his fellow competitors have said about him. They've asked Kenny and I to talk about some of the unique qualities that Fred has. And a couple of things come to mind. They were off limits, but I'm going to take some liberties. Things were not as well organized as they are today. We didn't have these kind of functions. Somebody turned around to say, with your meetings like this, and you know, handball's really grown. We've come up quite a bit in the world, which is great to see. I remember the time when Fred was in Toledo, and we have pictures, by the way, if anybody would like to know about it. He was bored, had another lousy business session with the old USHA, had nothing to do. He spent the night chasing after Joe Flores, the Chicago policeman, in a halter top and a skirt. That's what he did for entertainment in those days. So there is a dark side to Fred. The worst part is I was rooming with him, so I'm not sure what happened. I want to say. I look better than Joe? Okay.
No, you look better than Fred.
This is a tremendous, I should reflect that this is a tremendous honor for me to just get up here and talk about Fred. I'm about 5 years older than Fred, so I've seen the embryo grow. I know his family, his mother's sitting here. Irene knows me before I was born. He's great friends with our family and my greatest admirer, my mother. So this is tremendous to see this, see something like this evolve. I must tell you that Irene was very instrumental in Freddie's development at a very early stage. I must relate this story. Freddie gave me an okay to say this. We used to play at Castle Hill Beach Club. You heard about that from Mike Dow. And Irene was a very structured person. We had swimming pools, softball fields, tennis courts. And what we did for almost 6 months a year is run from one sport to another. We used to play handball twice a day. Once in the morning, eat lunch, go swimming, play baseball. Okay, now we're going to play handball again. That's what we did. But at 3 o'clock, no matter what we were doing, 20 up, serving for the match, you'd hear, Freddie. The game would have to stop, and Freddie had to have a milk and cookies. And I'm not lying. You can check with Marty, you can check with Kenny, that was true. I'm convinced that had something to do with Freddie's staying power later on in the pro circuit. No question. Those are great old days. On a serious note, and I'm going to get off here, I'm going to make this short. What was unique about Freddie? I mean, I've had the pleasure of playing against all of the people that Mike named. And they're all great, as Freddie is. I think of a story that Freddie probably doesn't know about his determination. Freddie had, was, as I said, 5 years younger than me and about 10 years younger than Marty Decatur. He had a lot of people that he could play with, Oscar Robert, great champions. He was a great doubles player very early on. And unbeknownst to many people, but certainly not myself because Bob Davidson spoke to him a lot, Freddie had a burning desire to become a great singles player. And as some of you know who watch the sport closely, Freddie certainly is not the fastest of foot. But he had tremendous determination. And in the middle of all that, he moved from New York to Florida. He was so determined to not take that as a negative. He worked harder on his game. He came back to New York to play against Jim Jacobs to improve his game. He really took it serious. And while he was going to school, it was a tremendous accomplishment. And Bob told me through this whole time, you watch Freddie. He's going to be one of the great players of all time. I only wish that Bob was here to see it. I'm not sure if Freddie knows it. The other thing and the last thing that I really want to talk about regarding Fred is probably the most important thing an individual has, is integrity. I played against a lot of great players. I can't think but one or two remotely match up to Fred on the integrity level. I had the pleasure, or the displeasure, of being at the wrong end of the score many matches with Fred. I've been in matches where Freddie's called wrist balls against himself and 20 up. I've seen him call 2 bounces when the score was 10 up in the tiebreaker. I was refereeing some of those matches. I think that's shows tremendous strength of character to be able to do that at any time during a match, during an important tournament. There's very few people that I played with that showed that kind of strength of character. I think it's tremendous to see a person at that level of competition, to have that kind of sportsmanship level. And I just can't tell you enough after seeing playing against so many different guys that just don't match up. The final thing I want to just talk about is, you mentioned Castle Hill Beach Club. Fred's the 6th player to come out of Castle Hill to go into the Hall of Fame. And I'd just like to mention who the other ones are. Marty Decatur, for those of you who don't know, Paul Haber, Sam Haber, Kenny Schneider, yours truly, and Bob Davidson as a contributor. I'm really glad to see that there's bedrocks around the country now growing, like the City of Commerce, that are going to be the new Castle Hill Beach Clubs to help handball grow. Nothing makes me happy to see our sports growing. So just finally, I'm proud to be able to be up here as a friend, as a warrior. I can't tell you. Congratulations.
My speech is not too long. We will cater breakfast after a bit. I really wanted to start with all the stories, but we really would be around for breakfast, but just have to go with one. Fred has all these nicknames, Steady Freddy, but a lot of people don't know about the nickname of Clutch Lewis. And that occurred about 2 o'clock in the morning in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, after Freddie and I were attacked by a bottle of tequila. And Fred was in a car stopping what he thought was the brake, going down the hill, yelling, "The brakes are out, the brakes are out." It's the first time he ever drove a car with a clutch, and he was pounding on the clutch. So Clutch Lewis, go to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and talk about Clutch Lewis up there. I've had the great fortune of knowing Fred all this time. We've been together about 20 years since we started doing these clinics. And in Dallas in February, he asked me to be a part of his great night, and I want him to know that made me feel great, Fred. I want to go over a little bit of the record first. If we started naming his victories, again, we would be here all night, but here are some of the highlights. He won 2 national collegiate singles championships in the late 60s. Then he kind of turned to doubles, and he, along with his partner Steve Lapp, were the USHA's doubles runners-up in 70 and 71. In 1972, he entered singles in Seattle and knocked off the defending champion Paul Haber in the semis, and then won it all over Terry Muck in the finals. Next year in 73, he was defeated in the quarters by Stuffy Singer, and a lot of people said, well, Fred's just another good player. But then for the next 10 consecutive years, Fred Lewis was in the finals of the USHA Championships. In 74, next 3 years, he knocked off Dennis Hoplander 3 straight years, 1974, 75, in that grueling 3-hour and 40-minute match, 1976 in Las Vegas. Then somebody else started coming along that we kind of know about, named Alvarado, and Fred lost to Nadia in 77, but came back to beat him in 1978. Then he finished second to Noddy in 79 and second again in 80, and everybody thought, well, Noddy's invincible now. But then the Nationals came along in Chicago in 1981. Fred lost the first game, but this is from Vern Roberts. I don't envy the very tough job my friends Pete Tyson, Ken Smolak, and Lou Russo have. There is no way handball justice can be achieved tonight. All of handball has benefited and learned from Fred Lewis, both the player and the person. Fred not only ushered in the Pro Tour, but also the era of nice guys finishing first in handball. My peers and I were very fortunate to have Fred not only to learn the game, but to learn about handling pressure, how to handle winning, and how to cope with losing. I was especially fortunate to have Fred befriend me during my first year on the tour. We were roomies, and that entitled me to more than my share of wisdom. From Fred, I learned about punishing opponents, though I'm sorry to say that most of what I learned was firsthand. I learned winning was all about old-fashioned values such as hard work, single-mindedness, and dedication. Those were Fred's calling cards. Something else I'll always remember is how happy it was for me the first time I came off the court a victor in one of our contests. He could barely lift his left arm, but he made no excuse. Instead, he praised me for my control to his offhand. You see, losing wasn't hard for Fred. He knew how to win, and he always knew that he had given every point his best. I'd like to think that I had learned well everything Fred had to offer. However, there's one thing Fred couldn't teach anyone else. Fred told me one time, that's how you get to know the real person. Their real identity comes out on the handball court in the heat of battle. In the heat of battle was also the time that Fred's sportsmanship in class always shone, such as the time he reversed the referee's call that had been in his favor at 8-8 in the tiebreaker of the national finals. Unfortunately, Fred's qualities that we most admire can't be taught, but he set one heck of an example throughout his career. Thanks, Fred. Facts today, so I'm really well prepared here. This is from Steve Lott. The year was 1972, and Fred's extraordinary ability began to capture the imagination of the handball world. Of all the comments made at that time about Fred, there was one made by Jim Jacobs that stands out in my mind. Jim and Fred had just finished 2 brutal games at the 92nd Street Y. Afterwards in the locker room, Lou Cranberg asked Jim what he thought about Freddie's game. Jim said that he did everything he could to keep Fred off of him. Fred is for real, Jim said. 1 month later, Fred beat Johnny Sloan, Lou Russo, Paul Haber, and Terry Muck to win his first national singles title. Walking on a handball court with Fred Lewis is a thrill and an honor I will never forget. Dear, dear Fred, congratulations and thanks a million. This one is from John Sabo. When I watch Freddie play, I think of style, grace, and coolness. An athlete with ice water in his veins and the brains of a surgeon at work. And after he dismantles his opponents or wins another title, he always shows that boyish humility, never letting his success go to his head. His easy smile and never-ending praise for others makes him the class of the entire handball fraternity. Fred stands alone in a group of select players to be honored by this great achievement. Fred is the American handball folk hero, and we should all be proud to say we know him. I know I am. Best luck and congratulations. John Sabo, P.S. Hope to see you soon, but please. Contributions to the game, both on and off the court, are well documented. However, Fred was a little different from most great champions. Most champions, when they walk onto the court for an important match, bring with them their physical abilities, their resolve and will to win, their determination, etc. Fred brought these items and even more. What else he brought that made him different from my view was that he also brought his brain and his friendship. More than anything else, for me, playing Fred Lewis was fun. If you could call being yanked from one side of the court to the other fun. His brain always tested me as we attempted to move each other around the court, trying to get the other guy to give up the opportunity. But Fred also never lost sight of the fact that we were friends and that this was just a contest of who was going to win a handball match on this particular day. Obviously, Fred certainly won more than his share, but he didn't win at all costs. He won with integrity and friendship. Though we don't see or talk to each other as often as we used to, I still consider him my good friend, and I value that friendship. Study. The letter. When Fred won his first national title in Seattle, handball was played at its highest level ever. Handball was played the way it was supposed to be, and Fred made it look so easy. He didn't move much from center court because his opponents did all the running around due to the tremendous angles and thorough placement on the court, making him the steadiest player I've ever seen. Fred beat all of his opponents with the class of a true champion. The class he brought to the game in 1972 has sustained until 1993. Every person has a hero. Mine has always been Fred. I admired the way he carried himself on and off the court. My imitation of his attitude and dedication to the game has helped me in my handball career and in life as well. There are so many personal memories. I will never forget the matches I had with him. I won some, he won some, but in the end, the game of handball won from having a player like Fred as one of its members. I'd like to congratulate Fred and thank him for all the lessons. Sincerely, Nati Alvarado. One of the last ones here is from Carl Porter. It started off 43 pages, and we docked it down to a page, maybe. In a game synonymous with friendship, many of us treasure his friendship more than any other. I know of no one in our handball fraternity who is more universally respected as a person. Thus, as the years have passed since Fred's glory days on the court, it would have been easy for him to simply sit back and soak up our adulation, but he hasn't. Fred is a CPA, and for the last 11 years, as our association's volunteer treasurer, he has weekly and sometimes daily visited the USHA office, signing checks, organizing our accounting, and helping to prepare budgets and financial statements for the memberships and board. In the last decade, he has contributed more free time and expertise to the USHA than any other human being. Just as he played the game, he has done it in a quiet, deliberate, unassuming manner. Appearances, however, can be deceiving. As a player, he was dubbed Steady Freddy and the Iceman for his stoic, seemingly unemotional, and mechanical devastation of his opponents. But I'll never forget this same awards banquet at the hotel in Tucson in 1982, when Fred and I had to stand before all of you and announce that the old USHA was essentially bankrupt and was being reorganized. We appealed to you for help. Before we finished speaking, players were approaching the podium, handing Fred checks and cash and scraps of paper with pledges. Within an hour, over $7,600 have been committed to the Save Handball Fund and the new USHA. The so-called Iceman stood there with contributions in both hands, obviously fighting back the tears. That moment and his endless efforts ever since have proven to me that Fred Lewis's love for our game is every bit as great as his ability on the court. He has earned his spot in our Hall of Fame, not only for being one of handball's greatest players, but also for being one of its greatest contributors and friends. Carl Porter.
Get your reward. Much deserved.
I'll tell you, I haven't gotten an ovation like that since my honeymoon. For nominating me and selecting me to be a member, what I consider to be the most prestigious Hall of Fame in all sports, because as we all know, handball is the greatest sport on this planet. A couple of things I'd like to say. People ask me all the time, what does it take to be a top handball player? Well, it's something that I've thought about for some time, and there were basically 4 areas or influences in my life which inspired me to become the player that eventually I became. Probably the most important part of my life has to do with my genes. A couple of weeks ago, Charles Barkley, great pro basketball player for the Phoenix Suns, made a very controversial statement. He said that athletes are not role models, that parents are role models. And I couldn't agree with that statement anymore. I had 2 of the greatest parents I think any child could have. My mom, who I invited to come up and spend this great evening with me, spent many long hours with both myself and my brother watching us compete in different competitive sports. By the way, Lou, just a minute ago she mentioned to me that if you drank your milk when you were a kid, you probably would have grown a little bit more. And as Lou said earlier, my dad was a very good club handball player in New York. He's a terrific athlete and a great inspiration to me. In 1981, the day he passed away was probably the saddest day of my life. But in the weeks and months following that, I probably played some of the best handball I ever played in my life. And I really don't think I would have won that last national title without the inspiration and emotion that I felt following his death, because I felt that he was with me that whole time, and he helped carry me through. Second area of my life that was extremely important in handball, and this gentleman was referred to earlier by both Mike and Kenny and Lou, and that was Bob Davidson. And some of you may not remember Bob, but Bob was one of the early members of the USHA. He was a tremendous influence on the association, both at a national and local level. Nationally, he was the Rules and Referees Chairman for a number of years. He was at the Nationals every year. Very controversial individual, very opinionated. Everybody knew who Bob Davidson was, but more importantly, he was a very unselfish man when it came to kids and handball. And I think, that was his life. That was probably 90% of his life. That's what he cared about most. And he dedicated his life to spending tremendous amounts of time with the kids at the Castle Hill Beach Club. And as Mike alluded to earlier, if you ever came up to Castle Hill, see Bob sitting there in his beach chair like a king. And he had his court surrounding him, the court with the kids. Kids would sit at his feet and listen to his words of wisdom for hours upon hours upon hours. Not only was he a great coach, but he was a great friend. Both myself, Lou, Marty, Kenny, and all the other kids that came out of Castle Hill. And he was a great influence on my life, and somebody that I must give a tremendous amount of credit to in helping me develop a philosophy about the game of handball, which I was able to employ in my handball game. Third area of my life that was very important were the facilities, the great facilities that I had a chance to play at during my career. The early stage of my life was spent at the Castle Hill Beach Club, and as Lou said, this is the greatest place to grow up. We went from handball to softball to swimming to tennis. The place opened at 10 in the morning, closed at 8 o'clock at night. That's all we did all day long was play in the summertime. And it was just a tragedy that the place had closed down several years ago. But I consider myself lucky to have grown up in this environment where I was able to make friends that I've known 40 years or more. We started playing handball at a very early age. The pool, beach club itself, conducted handball tournaments for kids. First tournament I ever played in, I was 8 years old. My partner was 7, and we played a 10 and under tournament, and we came in second place. But we had tournaments for every age group, beginning at 8 years old on up. And then finally, when we turned 16, they cut the age groups off, because by that time we were good enough to begin competing with the men. We started playing in the B tournaments, and then eventually in the open tournaments. So Castle Hill was a unique place. It's a place that will always have a special place in our hearts, those of us that grew up there. After graduating from high school, my dad retired from the New York City Fire Department. And it was his dream and my mom's dream to retire to Florida. So we moved to Miami Beach, and I spent a good part of the next 10 years or so playing handball at Flamingo Park on Miami Beach. Flamingo Park goes back a long time, has a great history to it. And it was at Flamingo Park where my game really began to take off. And I have to give special thanks to those that played at Flamingo Park. They're represented here today by Murray Marcus, some of the other players from Miami Beach. And my hat is off to them, because without their financial help, it would have been impossible for me to travel around and compete in different tournaments. So they basically helped give me my start, where I was able to travel all over the country and get the competition that was needed to fine-tune my game. So I have a special place in my heart for all those that lived in Miami and helped contribute for my benefit in order to travel around and play handball. For the last, I guess it's almost 14 years, I've lived in Tucson, Arizona. Tucson's a great place to live. Moved there in 1979. One of the primary reasons for moving to Tucson was that I had been visiting there for a number of years. We'd had pro stops at the Tucson Athletic Club, and I really liked the environment. And my hat goes off to Carl Porter, Neil Manning, who were then owners of the Tucson Athletic Club, for helping me out, helping me get started in Tucson, and being able to play and compete in one of the finest handball facilities in the United States. The last part of this little story, I just want to talk about some of the great athletes that I was fortunate enough to compete against during glory years. I was lucky enough because I bridged 2 generations of great handball players. 1973, we had the start of pro handball. We finally put handball on the map from a professional standpoint. And one of the greatest thrills that I ever had was winning the first pro handball stop. And that was back in, at the St. Paul Athletic Club, St. Paul, Minnesota. And the format back then was a lot different than it was today. Back then, competition was tremendously even. And the first stop had 8 players, and we were dubbed the Super 8. These 8 guys were Paul Haber, Stuffy Singer, Lou Russo, Terry Buck, Gordy Pfeiffer, Steve August, and myself. I don't know if I left anybody out. But the unique part about this tournament, something that I'll never forget, is the fact that every match that was played in this tournament went 3 games. And that was back in the days when we played 2 out of 3 to 21 points. And because it was the first pro stop, we even played off for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place. And even those playoff matches, which really were consolation matches, all went 3 games. So I consider that tournament to be one of the finest, if not the finest, pro stop that was ever played, because the competition was just, so equal. It was anybody's tournament. And back then, we didn't seed the brackets. The way the tournament was organized was that we picked out of the hat to see who played who, because everybody was so equal. We really couldn't seed it. And so just through a blind draw, picking out of the hat, we were able to get this tournament where every match went 3 games, and I'm sure the people that attended that tournament had thrills that they'll never forget for the rest of their lives. So that was the first generation of players that I competed against towards the end of that first year. Dennis Hoflander made a comeback. I think he was 27 or 28 at the time, and he was making a comeback after spending some time over in Vietnam. He had gotten charged up again because of the fact that we had pro handball. And Dennis showed up at the Nationals in 1974 and made it known that he was going to be a force that had to be dealt with. And he and I, along with the other members of the tour, for a number of years, went toe-to-toe at just about every single pro stop. And we basically helped revitalize the game with renewed interest, because we had some of the most exciting handball that was ever displayed. Because at that time, every pro tournament was almost like a national tournament. Because of the fact that the guys did not have to play for a full week, they only had to play for 3 or 4 days, they were able to come in and play at the top of their games from day one. So the competition was just phenomenal, and it was great entertainment. Those cities that had pro stops in the early days really got their money's worth. As Pete mentioned, around 76, 77, Nadi Alvarado came along, and Nadi was a part of the next generation of players, of great players. We all know what Nadi did. He went on to create history by winning 11 titles during his career, 11 national four-wall titles. And Nadi will probably go in the Hall of Fame in a few years as the greatest player of all time. Along with Nadi, my good buddy Vern Roberts, I have great memories playing against Vern, rooming with Vern. They say, how can athletes, fool around together and go out and enjoy each other's company and then go on the court and battle each other out? Well, we never had a problem with that, because we played handball, we played hard. Friendship aside, we were athletes, and then when the match was over, we were able to go out and have a good time together. So to me, that was probably the most fun time that I've ever had in my life. The years that I spent touring and playing with my good friends. Last thing I want to say is that reading the paper a couple of weeks ago, and I came across this quote. You all know who Kevin McHale is, the great forward for the Boston Celtics. And Kevin retired at the end of this year. I just want to read what he said. He said, "I honestly believe that something is going to be in my life that will be more important and more fun than everything I've done up to this point. Then something else will come along, and that will be more important and more fun. That's life. That's great. If you live in the past, you might as well shoot yourself. The day that you feel you've reached the Mecca, what's there left? And that's something I wholeheartedly agree with, and that's one of the reasons why the last 10 years or so I've put so much effort into this organization. Because it's a part of me, it's a part of my life, and it's something that I will continue to strive for in an effort and hope that things can only get better in this great sport that we play. Thank you very much.
Fred, welcome to the Hall of Fame. And as the chairman of the committee, I would like to invite all the current Hall of Famers that are here present to come up and welcome you into a very special fraternity. For the Hall of Famers that are present, please come up. Marty, Louis, Steve, Kenny. I think that's all that are here tonight.
Steve, you still want to move over a little bit?
Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder there's a lot of good handball left to be played. We start tomorrow morning at...
Good morning. We're approximately 1 minute away from the third place match in our 43rd USHA Nationals Pro Division between Toddy Silvera from Commerce, California, John Bike, Albuquerque, New Mexico. As you can see by the scoreboard, 1 minute to go. Here's just a view of the facility again on our last day of the tournament. It's been a great one here in Baltimore. Looking forward to coming back here once again. It's been a great venue. This match will be followed at 1 o'clock by the Pro Singles Final. You see John Bike loosening up on the court. His opponent, Toddy Silvera. We'll be back with the start of the third place match. And this is the final of the 60-plus super doubles. In our 43rd match. Serving is Arnie Aguilar. Partner Del Mora. Receiving is Dave Rock. Jim Goldberg. 0-1. Referee, Art Padilla. Art. 60-plus doubles final. Okay, 0-1. Dave Roth serving now. 0-1. 0-1. Just starting this final. Right out. More room in there, guys. A little more room than taking a shot. 1-0. Go take a look at the women's open doubles final, being officiated by Chuck Reed. We got down here Beth Raleigh, Anna Engel, Lisa Frazier. Her her partner, Ivana Malloy. Two ladies are the defending champions. Just starting, it's 0-1. Yeah. It's a view from the upper level. One of the display booths. Saranac glove. Hi, ladies. Alice and Linda Dudley. Vern Roberts walking down the stairs.
Morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
Great. Walking over to see what's going on over here. Third place match. Going bike. Tati Silvera. Playing for third place. Referee is John Robles. Okay, heading over to two more finals. See what we have in here. 1700 final. And over here, right next to him, is a final of the 70 and over. Ray Barrett, Joe Joyner against Joe Massandria and Murray Marcus. 12-8 scores the 70 doubles final.
Second serve.
Over here we have Chris Lessing and Jarrett Trieber in the 17 game. Great job. Okay, picking up the action here once again, and the third place match between John Bike serving and receiving. 6-13 the score. John really doesn't look like he's on his game today. Matter of fact, the entire week's been a tough one for John. Lost in the semifinals yesterday, or Thursday I should say. We now give the pros a day off between the semis and the final. Lost to David Chapman, and then yesterday playing in the final of the open doubles, John and his partner John Robles lost to David Chapman and Nadia Alvarado Jr., who successfully defended last year's victory. So we have two in a row for the young monster team, 17-year-old David Chapman, 20-year-old Nadia Alvarado Jr. We beat John Bike, John Robles yesterday, and today this third place match so far is going Silvera's way, 13-6.